Good evening. Welcome to this Sunday, December 7th, a day that will live in infamy. Yes, exactly 84 years ago, imperial forces of Japan attacked the United States at Pearl Harbor. And this finally woke up the United States to its duty as defender of democracy throughout the world. And it was about time because Hitler had started invading Western Europe already 2 years before. But this was the drop in the bucket for the United States. So it gave its full support to the fight against authoritarianism, fascism, and dictatorship. And then fast forward to 2014, where Russia, through, the invasion of Crimea, in a very stealthy way, started repeating that process that ended with World War II for the first time in Europe again. And that's why I want to play a little video about the reaction of Marco Rubio, the current Secretary of State of the United States. So bear with me.
Now understand that when the Soviet Union fell in the early 1990s, Ukraine was left with the world's third largest stockpile of tactical nuclear weapons and strategic nuclear weapons on the planet. But they signed this agreement with the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia that basically said, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we, these three countries that signed to this, will provide for your defense and assure you of your defense. And so
to make sure, because it perhaps was not clear, so the Budapest Memorandum of 1994, signed between Ukraine, Russia, the United States, and the United Kingdom, the United States.
Ukraine did that. They gave up these weapons. Well, now, this was signed in 1994, 20 years later, one of the three countries that signed that agreement hasn't just not provided for their defense, they actually invaded them. And I want to make a point on this for a second. Think about if you're one of these other countries around the world right now that feels threatened by your neighbors. And the United States and the rest of the world are going to you and saying, listen, don't develop nuclear weapons. Don't develop nuclear weapons, South Korea. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Japan. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia. We will protect you. We will
protect you, because that was the deal with Ukraine. Ukraine sat on a stockpile of nuclear weapons, so including ballistic nuclear weapons that could reach, well, the United States, but also Russia, and a fleet of nuclear bombers, which could carry free-fall nuclear bombs. So, according to the Budapest Memorandum, Ukraine would give up all that, and that would reassure the United States because it didn't want Ukraine. They didn't have control over those weapons. So, but of course, Ukraine already felt the threat of Russia. So that's why they agreed, if you're gonna protect us, and even included Russia. So what could go wrong? What could go possibly wrong? Well, anyway, Marco Rubio was as appalled as I am and anybody else of this civilized world that this memorandum was breached in a flagrant way by Russia, in a very sarcastic way. Your signature to a treaty that protects a certain country, nation, and then you invade it. Not only do you not protect it, no, you invade it. That's Russian sarcasm, if ever there was that. So Marco was appalled. Now, fast forward to now, when Marco Rubio is Secretary of State in the Trump administration. And here we go.
Bring it about. And here's the thing to remind everybody. And when the president says this is not our war, but let's be frank, this is not our war. The United States is not in a war. Ukraine is in a war. And we've been supporting.
It's not our war. The United States is not in a war. Yeah, too bad that Russia invaded Ukraine. It's not our problem. You signed the Budapest 1994 Memorandum. And you confirmed you yourself a decade before, in 2014, that the United States has a commitment to live up to its commitments. So that's... how old was Marco Rubio when he made that statement? When we made that address? That video where he defended Ukraine? He wasn't 12 years old. He wasn't 14 years old. He was not a minor. He was a grown-up. He was a representative in Congress, a member of Congress. He was a responsible person by that time. So what changed, Marco? What changed since? Because when you made your defense of Ukraine in 2014, not too many people had been killed. Russia just had this little green man show up in Crimea and annexed it, quote unquote, peacefully. But still you were appalled. But since then, the real atrocities have occurred. In Bucha, in Mariupol, in countless other cities, the daily bombings of civilians, of civilian infrastructure, and the wholesale invasion of the four eastern oblasts of Ukraine. But what do? You walk back your statements. And now suddenly it's not our war. It's not our war. Now, I can understand this from the people in your surroundings, because they have dark agendas, many of which are aligned with the Kremlin's. But you look like a good guy. So you're a turncoat. You're a study in opposites, which doesn't make for good secretaries of state. But anyway, peace. I want to talk.
Supporting Ukraine. We happen to be in the role of the only country in the world, with the only leader in the world, that can actually bring Putin to a table to even discuss these things. Now, the president has traveled, all the way to Alaska, all the way back, has dedicated months and months of work, him, our entire team, on this matter, because we want to see an end to the war. But if tomorrow the war continues, life in America will not be fundamentally altered.
An end to the war. So that's where the Kremlin narrative slipped in. Call it a war. Not an invasion, but a war. Like the wars Egypt and Israel had, which started with the Arab-Israeli War in 1948, when Arab countries attacked Israel. I'm not gonna express myself on the validity of that war. That's beyond the scope of this video, but it was a war between two nations that share a border. And then we had the 6-Day War, in which Israel conquered a large swath of Egypt territory, the Sinai Peninsula. Yeah, you could compare it to Russia conquering the 4 oblasts in eastern Ukraine. But that was ended with a peace agreement. And that's the right term for it. Peace treaty. That's what peace treaties are for. Peace treaties solve border conflicts. This is a border conflict, like between Pakistan and India. So there's the occasional skirmishes, artillery rounds exchanged, the incursion from one country to the other, and then the other country incursion into that's border conflicts, and that's what peace treaties are for. And you know what? People are happy with peace treaties, and you can see it on the faces. If you don't believe me, look at those faces. Those are happy faces. Now, imagine that this is Zelensky and this would be Putin and this would be Trump. I don't think there would be these smiles, especially not on this side. So no. A peace agreement wouldn't work. You know why? Because border conflicts are ended through peace agreements. But invasions are ended by the invader being repelled. And that's what needs to happen. That's what happened in 1945 in Europe. End of World War II in Europe. Nazis were defeated. The United States and the Allies didn't say to Nazi Germany, hey, this killing, this senseless killing, need to stop. Too many soldiers have died on both sides. There should be peace. They didn't say that in 1944. No, there was a Normandy invasion to kick them out, to kick them back to Germany. And some. That's how invasions are ended. They end with a agreement as well, but it's not a peace agreement, it's a surrender agreement. It was signed for Germany on May 8th, 1945 by this guy, General Keitel. You know what? He was condemned to death during the Nuremberg trials for war crimes and hanged. I hope this puts things again a bit in perspective. And no, Russia's invasion of Ukraine cannot be ended through a peace agreement. And Marco Rubio needs to stand up for what he once was. Hope this was helpful, and see you next time. Bye-bye.